Right, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us. It is the bottom line. And when it is the evening of a Monday, exactly 8 p.m., then you know that we are coming your way with the best of business analysis on your airways. I'm right from our studios here at Ridge in Accra. We are live also on DSTV channel 277, and we are live on our Facebook page, Chairman Kwesi Free, and of course, Metro TV News page. So tonight is about the Ministry of Finance, the economy of Ghana, the indicators of Ghana, and how we run along as a country. What will be the fallout of the IMF? The Minister of Finance and Economic Planning, Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, was on the floor of Parliament today. The entire media monitored the Parliament today and the things that the Minister of Finance said to the whole country today. What do you make of it? Today, we'll make a lot of inputs, or we will receive a lot of inputs from you, the viewer, and get your concern. So our numbers, WhatsApp numbers, will be scrolling right from the beginning of the program. We're expecting that you put your messages across. I'm sure if time permits, producer will allow us to pick some calls as well. But primarily, today we are listening to your concerns. We are listening to what you think or where you think the country is headed towards economically. But most importantly, we'll have some economists or financial experts also speak to us about what they make of the budget, mid-year budget that has been read today. The Minister of Finance actually said he's not coming to Parliament for supplementary budget. That was very significant. However, some pundits have said that it would have been better if the minister had been open and clear about the fact that he was coming in for a supplementary budget. We'll get into the details of that. We'll be privileged to be speaking to Professor Lord Mensah of the University of Ghana Business School tonight. Unfortunately, he's not able to join us in the studio here, but he has agreed to join us via Zoom to interpret the budget to us and to speak to it, some of the things that have been said by the Minister of Finance. So you want to stick and stay with us, and we want to pick up our numbers to send in your concerns during the show. We'll be right back. Right, so you're welcome back from the break. I've told you early on that tonight we are focusing on the Minister of Finance statement on the floor of Parliament. I'm speaking to the economy of the country and where we are headed towards. What do you think as a citizen? Did you listen? Have you listened to the media space, and what do you make of the Minister of Finance statement? Are we headed for right, or we're headed wrongly? Do you support the call that the Minister of Finance should resign or be sacked by the President, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and why do you think so? You may want to put up your comments on our social media pages, specifically on WhatsApp as well. Let's try as much as possible to read them. There were a number of issues that came up with or from the Minister of Finance statement. First of all, he said that the country going to IMF is a short-term measure. The country requires a structural activity. The structure of the economy needs to be really looked at. The question we are asking is, what have you been at the helm of affairs for the past 6 years for? The government came on the promise of industrialization and a cut in taxation. Why haven't we have a restructure of the economy? Has a 1D, 1F agenda failed as an economic promise by the NPP government? We are focusing on the business aspect of everything that the minister has said today. We are to go back to the road tolls. We are to do a lot and a number of things. I'm sure you monitored the space. I'll bring all of this to you one by one. And tonight, we have veteran and versatile economists and finance experts that we are going to speak to. But before we do that, we had the minority caucus responding as usual. We would have the majority respond, and we would have the minority respond. And some members of parliament will also react to it initially before the following day they begin the debate on the details of the budget. So until tomorrow, we'll take the initial comments of both sides. If my producer is ready, we'll pick this one, and we'll come back to our experts and begin the digestion of the topic.
The finance minister told us one of the reasons he canceled the road toll was because road toll collection ends up creating pollution in the environment. He said because of pollution, he stopped the collection of the tolls. Today, he's saying that they are going to build a motorway as a part of PPP. As we speak, the people who have lost their job as a result of what he did, some of them are standing here. He hasn't said anything about paying them. So we are saying that this government can never be trusted. It's very disgraceful for him not to apologize to the people of this country that when he spoke in 2021 and then in the 2022 budget, he actually lied about the status of the Tema motorway. And for the road toll, I want to commend him for at least today he didn't pray before starting, but interesting today he told a little bit of truth.
Everything in this country is not working. Yet the minister responsible for finance appeared before us and said nothing. He failed to address the very concerns of the ordinary Ghanaian. Today, he comes here once again only to tell us that he has missed all the targets he set in the 2022 budget. Every one of them, he could not achieve it. Everyone, he has missed them. Only for him to propose target that he's going to miss again in the year 2022 by the end of the year.
That reserves that the Bank of Ghana cooked and released last Friday after our press conference is of no consequence. The Minister for Finance said the reserve moved from 9 billion to 3 billion. Is that not it? Have they ever achieved a net international reserve of 9 billion before? It's gross. So if the minister said 9 billion to 3 billion, he was referring to gross international reserves. So the 7.6 billion gross international reserve cooked by the governor is in excess of $4.6 billion, which doesn't exist in the Bank of Ghana. So ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow we will start the debate. But suffice it to mean that our country is doomed, and I want to repeat my call on the president to sack Ken Ofori-Atta if he will not.
I will call on Ghanaians to keep faith, remain focused, have trust in this government. If today they are calling on the finance minister to resign, they are personalizing governance and attacking the finance minister, we dare ask them, did Setekpe resign? Did their ministers resign? No. Because in spite of their incompetence, they still believed in the collective. Today, they are proud to re-represent. They are proud of former President John Mahama. They want him to lead the nation again. They say they have no other choice apart from him. Is that so? If it is so, they should give us the opportunity to transform the economy where it became a problem as a result of COVID and Ukraine-Russian war. We have demonstrated that with the policies in place, we will be able to get out of this.
Parliament. So what I've actually been talking about is the fact that you heard the Honorable Adungu and Honorable Afenyo-Makin from both sides of Parliament reacting to the statement on the floor of Parliament by the Minister of Finance today. So tonight, we're expecting to be speaking to Professor Lord Mensah, who is a professor of finance at the University of Ghana Business School. Professor Joseph K. TUFFOUR is a professor of economics at the University of Professional Studies, and Emmanuel Cherry is the Chief Executive Officer, Ghana Chamber of Construction Industry. Let me begin with, I think we have Professor Joseph K. TUFFOUR on the line, and we have Emmanuel Cherry also on the line. We'll be joined by Professor Lord Mensah is also joined on the line via Zoom. Good evening, and thank you all very much for joining us, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Right,
Good
so
evening, my good brother.
Prof. TUFFOUR, I believe you can hear me. Let me begin with you. There are a number of issues that have come up, and our basic question that we have asked to start with is whether we are headed rightly or wrongly as a country. There are a number of issues. Basically, the minister said that he wasn't going to come in for a supplementary budget. However, there are some experts who are saying that with the kind of requirements and the things the minister has to do in the number of months that we have left in the year, he may come in for more money, or he didn't provide where the funding will come from. And so it would have been much as good as requesting for a supplementary budget. But for you, primarily, where are we headed towards as a country?
All right, thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this. After listening to the minister and also going through some of the issues he talked about, I'm of the view that within the constraint we find ourselves and the fact that is as a result of the debt that we have accumulated over the period. And that is why we have this challenge. It will be difficult at the moment to be talking about spending more in that regard. And I expected that something will be said about new ways of looking at raising more revenue. I think that where we are heading to is to solve the problems we have. And one of the key areas indicated is our initial interactions with the IMF, where we expect to get some benefits in terms of credibility and in terms of the funding support that in the short term, the minister indicated that we are going to receive. So for me, generally, we are heading towards a certain form of recovery, though it will take a bit of time. But in the interim, towards the end of the year, I see that all the efforts being put in place will be trying to stabilize the economic indicators and also stabilize the issues that we are confronted with at the moment, such that the rising inflation rate can be maintained, if not reduced, as well as the depreciation of the cedi. And so I see the effort being put in place and the indication of an alternative source of raising revenue, for instance, about the road tolls that have been hinted that they are going to be brought back, seem to suggest that while the expenditure side was being silent in the statement, there's an indication of looking at an alternative way of raising additional revenue, which is a key component of what we need moving forward. So for me, we are heading towards stability, but with a bit of caution in terms of not expecting too much of a drastic change, but a slow recovery is what I see ahead of us.
Right. So thank you very much. But let me come to you now, Emmanuel Cherry is from the construction industry, if you can hear me. One of the drivers or key drivers of the economy is the construction industry, and we've seen very high inflation rates. We've seen prices on top of the speed, looking at least the last 12 months and beyond. Listening to the minister today, are you hopeful about the economy?
Thank you, my good brother. And let me take this opportunity to salute all my council members of the Ghana Chamber of Construction Industry and my colleague panelists as well. Listening to the Minister for Finance today, he came to deliver his mid-year budget review as a supplementary to the main budget that was read last year. There were a number of provisions which was made in there last year, which was very encouraging to the construction industry as we seen it at that time. By prosecuting the budget as we speak now, we realize that most of our needs has not been taken care of, especially in the area that the president came out to declare the year of road phase part 3. as contractors and industry players, we are in there for business to meet up the infrastructure deficit of the country in as much as to produce accordingly. But we cannot do that single-handedly without the involvement or the partnership with government. So therefore, it is shared responsibility of governments to make the requisite provisions available for us, the developers, the professionals, the business entity to take advantage of. But as we speak now, most of the outstanding contracts or which has been awarded in the past are still lingering in their books. Most of them has not been honored in terms of payments. So it became a little difficult for government of the day to try as much as possible to deliver on its mantra, year of road. So today, we've seen a number of what they call it provisions which has also been made as well, which is a good news to us as business entity. But the question is, if the requisite funding is made available, will it be channeled to its usage? Because in the past, we've seen several facilities be raised in the name of road fund, in the name of road infrastructure, in the name of get fund infrastructure, how do you call it, educational infrastructure and thereabout. But surprisingly, you only realize that part of the money is being diverted to something else, which is not helping the industry. So as a business entity, we are very happy to hear that there is a number of road construction projects that has been earmarked by government that is seeking for the appropriate funding to execute. However, our fear is if that money is being approved by Parliament, will they utilize that money accordingly? That is where the question is. Now, coming back to the Tema motorway expansion, it's a good news, but the challenge is it's a pity and a worry to ask the local indigenous contractors, being that as we speak, our Bank of Ghana policy rates does not support with the local contractors for us to be able to be financially liquidated to compete with our counterparts. Because if we should go into the Bank of Ghana policy rates, it states if we should use today's exchange rate, then approximately is only $50 million that each bank can raise. And the project of Tema expansion is 500 and something million dollars. So that tells you that we need over 10 or 12 financial institutions to put their resources together before we can match up with one project. In fact, it's a worrying issue to ask the local indigenous contractors. If this happens all the time, we become second to none to our foreign counterparts, which is not the best. If we talk of capacity, we have it. But with the financial capacity, we are appealing to government to try as much as possible to really look at the stated capital that has been slapped on the financial institution. If not so, this is what is going to happen. The expatriate will always come, take over the money, and then repatriate it to their country. And then we keep wallowing in the, how do you call it, the debris. So in my initial comment, I believe that this is where I'll end it, and let's continue.
Right, let me come to you, Professor Lord Mensah. You are from the University of Ghana Business School. I remember clearly that you had made comments, maybe not emphatically, but it was to suggest that, for example, the e-levy, the approach for the e-levy wasn't too appropriate from the technocrats' point of view, and that's we obviously were going to hit the rock. And as we speak, the e-levy is not performing. It is not yielding the revenue as was expected by the finance ministry, and of course, the entire country. I mean, listening to the budget today, you have spoken about the IMF as well, and the fact that we'll end up going back to the IMF. And here we are today going to the IMF. Minister says it's a short-term event or activity by the ministry. Where are we headed towards, Prof? So, yes, we are trying to get back on the line, Professor Lord Mensah from the University of Ghana Business School. But we are here talking about the budget and the things that have been laid on the floor of Parliament today. And I was asking him about the fact that he had made predictions about the eventualities surrounding e-levy and the possibility of us going back to the IMF, and whether we are headed towards a good direction or a wrong direction. So, Prof, if you can hear me, let me allow you to flow. Hello, Prof. Right, so we are having some difficulties getting through to Professor Lord Mensah. But let me now come to the specifics. I had started early on with Professor TUFFOUR on his general or initial comments. So, Prof, let me come back to you. NAPCO, for instance, I want to take the issues one by one. NAPCO, for instance, we are told will end on 1st of September 2022, and some 2.2 billion have been spent on NAPCO. Do you think it was a good project by government, looking at whether we have had the impact we wanted or not, and these people are now to go into the U-Start program?
All right, thank you very much. I think that the NAPCO program was set out to achieve a certain target, and an amount has been spent on the persons who were engaged in the NAPCO program. Obviously, one of the key outcomes that we expected from it is the employment and also the utilization of the resources in the persons and their usage in the various sectors of the economy in which they were engaged. I think that sometimes programs of this nature will take a bit of time to see the full realization of the impact. So the interim or the short-term benefits were the usage of the human resources that we had not used them before the coming into force of the NAPCO program. I think that we benefited up to a point, and up to a point in the sense that with the use of human resources, sometimes continuity is important so that we can continuously build the capacity and also give experience to these youth who were engaged in the various sectors of the economy through the NAPCO program. And so I looked at one, employment that was created for this. Two, the level of livelihood that was given to these people during the period of their engagement. The next is that the indirect benefit of the dependence of these people who were engaged. The next is that the services that they provided to society through the various sectors of the economy they were engaged in. So we benefited from the services, those that were on the road, for instance, helping to direct traffic, to control, to make sure that there's order on the road, for instance, were all good initiatives. And so by looking at this, I think that we benefited. The unfortunate part is that it is going to end in a few months' time, and then there's another opportunity that is being open for them to start considering. And that is the critical part. If we are not able to absorb all of them, if we are not able to engage all of them in the U-Start that is being proposed, then we are going to still have a lack of usage of these resources, and is going to compound the challenge that these people were facing. And also the nation as a whole is not going to benefit from them. So once they remain unemployed, then they are not going to be beneficial to themselves. The nation as a whole is also not going to benefit. The resources that were used to train them at school at the various levels of the education, we are not going to benefit. So I think that the transition as the minister indicated, should be smooth, such that all the beneficiaries of the NAPCO program would be able to transit to the Youth Start and the various components of the program that is being earmarked for. So for the fact that we benefited from the services they provide, for the fact that they themselves obtain some form of livelihood through the benefits they receive, for the fact that they were engaged and they were able to support their lives, support their families, and support all those who depended on them, is an achievement. But going forward is my concern, such that we should not leave them alone. There should not be a gap. Otherwise, that is also going to create another challenge. So I expect that there should be a smooth transition after NAPCO comes to an end, and also the start of the new program. There should be a smooth transition to that respect. And it's also about the fact that government has started. I heard the minister saying that a number has been taken through a 2-week program on entrepreneurship, on marketing, on human resource management, and all that. And these are some of the things that are going to be helpful, so that as government makes plans to engage them, to absorb them, those that can start businesses on their own, that is also a welcome idea, so that the burden on government, remember, as we consider engaging all these thousands of persons, that is also going to add to the government spending budget, and that is also a concern. And so as government proposes to absorb them in the Youth Start and other programs, I think that the emphasis should also be placed on how the individuals are going to be assisted in various ways to start their own businesses, however small, in the various fields that they were educated in the various fields that they served during the NAPCO. That should serve as a basis for them to begin consider doing something on their own, starting from whatever skill that they obtained during the NAPCO training and doing the NAPCO processes.
But Prof, in summary, do you think it was a good investment?
Can you hear me, please?
Yes, it was a good. It was totally a good initiative to absorb and to reduce the unemployment rate. Then, hello, can I continue?
Yes, please go on, Box.
All right, so I think you asked for a summary whether it was a good project. And
yes.
Yes, it was a good project. It was a good program. The benefits we received were enormous, and as a nation, and also for the individuals who were engaged through the process. And for me, that is one way to go of giving training and also emphasizing how the individuals can start something on their own. And so as we move forward, that is key. And I think that I will urge the government to strengthen the training that government is giving to the personnel, so that they will be able to not only wait for the opportunity to work with government institutions or government to engage them in programs initiated by government, but they can also begin to think about doing something on their own, doing something for themselves. Those who have IT background can begin to consider what they can do with the skills and knowledge they have, and all that. So in summary, I think the program was a useful one, and that is one way to go from the perspective of government.
Right. So, Professor, kindly hold on. I would love to get Professor Lord Mensah and Emma to join in on this special one, especially on the employment. But I will take the initial comments of Professor Lord Mensah because we have missed him. Our technology hasn't really helped us tonight. But I will take that of Professor Lord Mensah, then I come back on this particular issue. But, gentlemen, kindly indulge me. Let me take a quick break. When I'm back, I get back on the issue of e-levy, IMF, root tools, NAPCO, and so on and so forth. So you welcome back to the bottom line. We say business at the speed of thoughts. Let me quickly run to Professor Lord Mensah from the University of Ghana Business School. Prof, if you can hear me, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And let me quickly go to the question. I had made a statement that some time back you had made some pronouncements about the e-levy, for example, that we're going to get into the eventualities where we are now. You had made the prediction also that it is possible that we may go back to the IMF. The country is now currently in discussions with the IMF. You have spoken a lot about the structure of the economy. Today, the Minister of Finance on the floor of Parliament also spoke about the structure of the economy, and we thought that by 6 years now, government should have been heading towards a restructure of the economy through the 1D, 1F, the one village, one dam, and so on and so forth, from taxation to production. I mean, listening to the finance minister today, what do you make of it? Are we heading rightly or wrongly?
I think the finance minister in his presentation clearly admitted that they've not been able to change the economy structurally. So effectively, going forward, they're putting up some mechanisms. So when you take, for instance, the food security measures, I mean, he mentioned earlier. I mean, clearly he's talking about a situation where we'll be growing some staples. We'll be making sure that we rely on our organic fertilization, making sure that at least we ban some exportation of maize and rice, so the staples that we eat. These are, things that were supposed to come way, way back earlier. And then he also accepted that they may have to put their eyes on the ground to check on early warning signals of food insecurity, so that they can put measures in place. Clearly, it's a way of admitting that or the economy, when it comes to meeting the ordinary Ghanaian needs, they're not really up to that task. We've had policies being rolled out and policies being cancelled every now and then. And effectively, it gives you that signal of inconsistencies in policies. And as a result of that, and so, if you ask me, I would say that yes, indeed, government has been in power for the past 6 years. This shouldn't be the time to even talk about restructuring the economy, because economic restructuring does not come overnight. Government has only 2.5 years in power, and I'm wondering the kind of economic structure they can do, having gone with 6 years. And so I would say that yes, indeed, he mentioned economic restructuring, but achieving it could be a kind of a problem. Now let's take the review in general. If you look at the review, he indicated that he's going to reduce budget deficit to about 6.6%, which is which is an improvement on the last earlier budget budget deficit, which was around 7.4. Effectively, you could see with the programs outlined, as far as our expenditure lines are concerned, government is not ready to renege on any of the projects. He mentioned Agenda 111. For which about 77% of them are ongoing, which he's prepared to finance them. He mentioned, several projects that we know, which clearly it tells you that government is still prepared to spend. But then he made mention of some indirect expenditure reduction. The reason why I'm saying it is an indirect expenditure reduction is the partnership with the private sector when it comes to the Tema motorway extension. In a way, government has accepted that we may need private, hands in the construction of roads, which for me is a plus. It's a good start. Because I've always been, advocating for privatizing some of our roads. But government should also be careful in that line because, roads are public goods. If you provide it and you make the central, part of the road, like for instance, Tema motorway is one of the main motorways that links Accra to Tema, one of the commercial motorways. If the private man is taking over and you don't appreciate your equity very well in the contractual process. You might end up, stampeding your economy. So I believe the finance minister mentioned also that they're going to use the GIF fund, to make sure that they make some input in that road construction so that government can realize its equity in there, after all, possibly to control, prices in a way. It's a good movement. I will not, sidestep that. But I think, if you look at the dynamics carefully, government has been also shooting itself in the foot. The same way they took off the road tolls. If you look at what he's talking about engaging the private sector, I know very well that the private sector will not allow you, the private man will not allow you to use the e-levy, proceeds, which has several things to do to pay off, those roads. So effectively, you may have to bring the road tolls back. And so it's like road tolls coming back. When you create such an environment, the trust in your government goes down. And I believe Ghanaians by this time are wondering, what is this minister up to? Taking off road tolls and bringing it back. What about what we have lost in the past? For the past few months that the road tolls have not been in operation. So effectively, the inconsistencies are too much. And that is what is making Ghanaians not to appreciate the output of this government. And I can tell you that maybe indeed they are producing, they are making some economic, inroads. But as a result of inconsistencies in some of the policies they roll out, that trust is going down. And from where I sit, I think Ghanaians are beginning to lose, trust in the finance minister.
And I have to go to Ima quickly. He's, of course, in the building and construction industry. He has expressed happiness about some of the things that have been said today, and again, divergent opinions also about some of the things that have been said today. But Prof, I'll come back to you with a question of whether you agree to the call for the finance minister to be sacked, or he should resign himself. And I'll ask the same question to you, Professor TUFFOUR. But let me come to you now, Ima, on the toll issue. You were making a submission, but we didn't complete, specifically on the toll issue. You are in the construction industry. What do you make of the fact that road tolls have to be brought back?
Yeah, for this very issue, it seems that you and I discussed this in your studio.
Yes, I remember.
I
remember clearly.
I made our position, very clear that the cancellation of the road toll is completely out of place.
Yes.
So, thankfully, if government has gone back to the drawing board and then they're taking a U-turn, it's a plus, because one thing is, in as much as we all admit that is causing a nuisance to certain aspect of commuters, what must we do? Let's conduct an audit into it. What is causing the nuisance? That is where we need to come to. But here, like the case, you don't just get up overnight and then just declare, cancel. No. Meanwhile, you are the same person struggling to raise revenue to match with the infrastructure, deficit in the country. The same person is also trying as much as possible to cancel certain revenue generations avenues. So it's not adding up. All because they lack introspection. Instead of us as stakeholders to come together to brainstorm and see what are the proper ways of going into road toll, they just take the face value of it and did whatsoever they think they can do. Now it has cost the country a lot of money. You mention that it raised in 77 million Ghana cedis annually per annual. That is a minimum, which can be can go far above that. So which means 2021, 2022, we have lost a lot of revenue. This 77 or 100 million Ghana cedis can do a lot, or can pay a lot of contractors working on the various stretch of roads, but we have lost it to nothing. So thankfully, if the government of the day realize that the road toll is one of the game changers to financial, ventures into the infrastructure space, then it's a plus. Because
I think the government had no choice. where they're talking about the road tolls, they are going to engage the private man.
Yes.
The private man will not allow you to collect, this e-levy, which probably may go into a bottomless pit.
Yes.
And you will never maybe account for it. And the e-levy has several things to do. The private man wants to know if it's a road toll, it's a road toll. If it's road money, it's road money. That is why they have no choice than to bring it back on the road.
To bring it back. Right. Ima, you can land so that I go on with my next question.
Exactly. So now, the issue we as Ghana Chamber of Construction Industry have is, let's conduct an audit into the road toll. What are some of the challenges or the bottlenecks? So that we can unravel them and clear the way out and move on.
But
if it's a human element, what do? We have bad practices elsewhere. Others are practicing the same thing. China, we talk about today, who is giving money to almost every part of the world, to governments in Africa and thereabouts. What do? They are all, levying their people through road tolls.
Right.
They are the most tolls country in the world.
Briefly.
We go to them for peanuts.
Right. Our time is really running out.
Country,
Ima, can you hear me? Hello, Ima, can you hear me? Our time is really running out. That point has been well made. But let me ask you this quickly before I go to Professor TUFFOUR and then to Professor Lord Mensah. Do you support the call? I mean, your chamber had made complaints about contractors not being paid some years back and the challenges that has brought on the economy. Some people are calling for the Minister of Finance to be sacked. Do you support that call? Briefly.
One thing is, it depends upon the integrity aspects of the government of the day. Some time ago, Ghana Chamber of Construction Industry raised a very legitimate concern that it is about time for the president who hires and fires to try as much as possible to be bold enough to start cracking the whip.
So he should be sacked.
The time is long overdue for reshuffle. So it is about time. If the president realized that the Minister for Finance is not, doing the bidding for his government, then the honor lies on him to at least to cry the whip.
Right. Let me come to you now, Professor TUFFOUR. There's been a number of issues. Government says free SHS will stay in its form. E-levy will stay in its form. There has even been allegations. As we speak now, I am yet to verify that in the Appendix 2A, as stated by the minority in the mid-year budget. But all of these are things which the minority is basing on to make a call for the Minister of Finance to be sacked. Do you agree or not?
I am of the view that this can be looked at from two different perspectives.
Right.
The person involved can take the decision as and when he deems fit. The other side is the appointing authority can also decide. I want to leave it to these different categories to take the initiative because to some extent we are looking at the output at the end, but the processes that go on in the determination of tax and what is expected of the appointed officials, I think that I would want to stay neutral, but looked at the two persons, the president who appointed the minister to take the decision as he deems fit, as well as the person who is in charge, who is now at the center of affairs, to also look at the situation and decide, because that will be the ideal situation than people like us sitting at the far end and then asking for that decision.
So, unfortunately, because of time, let me come to you finally, Professor Lord Mensah. And let me put the same question to you. Today, the minority made the allegation that around January this year, the ministry forced or, for want of better words, encouraged the Bank of Ghana to print about 22 billion Ghana cedis. And that's part of the cause of the current inflation we have in the country. They are technically saying that the minister is run out of ideas in running the ministry. Free SHS is going to stay, and so on and so forth. They believe that minister should resign or be sacked. Do you agree?
Well, I think the minister is an economic manager. And for every economic manager, there are expectations of you. And in fact, our constitution, ties us to these expectations. Now, as an economic manager, you may have to project and get your realizations close to the projection. One, if you look at the E-levy, we were told that, look, if we take the E-levy, we're not going to IMF. Ghanaians embraced it, and then we ended up going to the IMF. We were made to know that E-levy should be able to rake in, all things being equal. I mean, at the minimum, should be able to rake in about 7 billion, Ghana cedis. Did we realize that? At a point, I think 2 months, 3 months into its implementation, which is almost a quarter, we had not even gotten 1/4 of what was being expected at the end of the year. That means that, the projections and the inconsistencies are too much. And if a manager behaves in that manner, obviously, your head will be called to resign. So I may not be in support of those who are calling, but then I think they have some key indicators they are looking at. And if you're economic manager, you're managing the economy and you're being inconsistent, then obviously there'll be a call for you to drop your pen. And that is why the public is calling for his head. And it might not be me saying it anyway.
Right. Thank you very much, Professor Lord Mensah. That was a good one. Then Professor TUFFOUR as well.
Name.
Yes, Prof.
Yeah. To add to what Professor just ended.
Yes.
Let's be sincere. We as a country, by our constitutional provision, made our finance minister more powerful and stronger than anything else. They become King God.
I agree.
It's not happening to this minister alone. The former minister, Setekpe, he also lost affection of his people. The same thing that is happening. So the time has come for us to look within what exactly is happening, because the single treasury, that is what they call it, we are practicing. That is the cause of the problem the finance ministers are facing. So it project them as if they're becoming too much powerful, like a king god, because every ministry falls under them. You like it or not, you need to go begging before you can get your...
Right. Thank you very much, Ima. And the entire thing is that there should be a reshuffle, whatever the case is. And I support that call, that His Excellency the President Akufo-Addo, please do make sure that there will be a reshuffle in the nearest possible time. At least in the rest of the week or in the coming week, we want to see a reshuffle of your government. Professor Lord Mensah is from the University of Ghana Business School. Professor Joseph K. TUFFOUR is from the Economics Department of University of Professional Studies, and Emmanuel Cherry is from the Chamber of Construction and Industry. My name is Kwesi Afri. I was your moderator for the evening. Have a very good evening. I hope you have enjoyed your evening.